So, I'm a wildlife artist from Oregon, and I love teaching kids how to draw realistic animals from around the world. So, I'm going to do a demonstration just for you on drawing a giraffe. And you can see some extra resources down below that you can download of pictures of giraffes. And so, just keep watching the video, and I hope you enjoy it. Today, I'm going to show you how to draw this giraffe. But first, before we rush to start drawing, let's look at the parts of the giraffe so we really understand it and can draw it more accurately. So starting from the top, all giraffes have this pair of ossicones. They're these bony structures, and the males have larger ones, and they're also a bit bald on top, like this one, because they've been rubbing them against other males as they fight. There's also a bump in the middle of the head that you can't see very well because of the fur, but that's also a smaller ossicone. Then they have a pair of ears, of course, to listen out for predators. And then they have their eyes, beautiful eyes with big eyelashes. I'm not sure what this little part is there. It might be some eyelashes or who knows what it is. But anyway, then coming down from the ossicone, you can follow that down to its snout and then down to the mouth. And you see a pair of nostrils and then their mouth with a big lips, and their tongue isn't showing, but they have a very strong black tongue that is strengthened by the pigment melanin to help it from getting injured when they're eating the really spiny acacia plants. And then we've got the giraffe's cheek here, which you can see is in the shade, and then the neck, which looks very small because this giraffe is walking towards us, so the head is much closer than the neck. And all giraffes have various types of spots depending on the species and the individual. They're as unique as fingerprints. And then lastly, they have a little upright mane, kind of like a zebra or a donkey. Okay, so now that we've looked at all the parts, we're going to start sketching, and there's lots of ways to do that, but try to follow along to my technique. We've got just enough room here to draw our giraffe right next to us here. And I'm going to start off very lightly, and I want you to try to draw very lightly as well, almost as if you're just tickling the paper and not pushing down very hard. And that'll help you from needing to do a lot of erasing. And I try to block in all the parts first and get the basic outline before I do any erasing. Now I'm going to draw a little bit darker than I want you to because you can see it better on the video, but try to draw a little lighter so that you can feel like you're not instantly committed to that line. So we're going to start with the area of the ossicones, and they're going to be about over here. Yeah. And I'm just going to make sort of a square here of where the ossicones are going to go. And then I'm going to make a line for the neck coming down. And just a little oval for where the ear is going to be. I'm not trying to be too exact yet. I'm just trying to get the basic areas. And then we have the forehead here. And that line comes all the way down here, kind of in a triangle. And we're going to ignore the other ear and eye for a minute, but we're just going to make this line down here to where the mouth would be. And let me see if I've got that about right. Yeah, it's about right. So, and then the mouth is going to kind of be here, and it's going to come over into a triangle, basically, for where the cheek is going to be. And then the neck will come down here. And again, the neck looks really tiny because it's farther away from us than the head. Then we want to add the other ear. That's a nice triangle here at the base of the ossicone. And again, just trying to very lightly place these areas. And then we actually have the triangle of the eye that is sticking out from the forehead. And that triangle comes down from the ossicone and goes out a little bit farther than the ear, and then kind of like this. All right. Then I will do some measurements here to kind of see if I'm kind of close. I'm pretty close. Oops. So then I'm going to do some measurements and see if I'm pretty close. Pretty close. This ear could be a little bit smaller. All right. And then I'm going to start getting some more details. Let me see about this and this. Yeah, those are pretty close. Okay, so then we're going to start again with the ossicones and then go on to the rest of the body. So the ossicones are these structures at the top of the head, and the males have bigger ones, and they're bald on top. And again, I'm trying to stay super light so that when I want to erase a little bit later, I won't feel like I've put indentations in the paper and made it harder to erase. And so I will not do any erasing. I'll just kind of look back and forth and see if I like these lines, if I think they're accurate enough. And so, yeah, and I'll get some fur here in that bald part, and some fur here. And then I'll kind of go a little bit darker here and do the other ossicone. And see, I'm not doing any erasing right now. I'm just drawing a little darker where I think the best line is. At the end, I'll do more erasing. Okay, so then I'm going to do back here in this ear, and we see that there's a space between the ossicone and the ears, and then it kind of goes like this, and then kind of like this, and then like this. And as you see, I had this beginning tri-line there that I'm not bothering to erase yet. And then there's the base of the ear here. And then it comes down to the neck. And I'll just do a line for the neck. It doesn't have to be very straight. And then the mane, which again is a lot like a zebra's. And we can add some more detail to that mane later. I like to try to get a little bit everywhere first. Now speaking of hairy parts, there are some hairs that go over the front of the ear here to help keep dirt and insects out and stuff. And you probably know that there are these birds called oxpeckers, which are often bugging the giraffes, trying to get parasites off of them, but sometimes they actually make the poor giraffe bleed. Okay, so that ear is close enough. Alrighty, so let's do the line over here for the top of the eye and then the other ear. So I'm going to come down here, and there's a little arch kind of for where the eyeball is. So I'm just going to correct that. And then we're going to have these really cute eyelashes. And we see a little bit of the black eye here. And I leave a little bit of that light to show a reflection of light, sunlight. You can't see that very well in this photo, but it will make it more realistic. How are we doing on our proportions? Pretty close. We're pretty close. Close enough. Okay, so then we've got an ear, and again, that's at the base of the ossicone. It makes sort of like a right angle there. And we're seeing that ear from a little different angle than the other ear. And that stops a bit above the eye there. And then there's some hairs in front, just like there's hairs over here, to help keep dirt and insects out. Okay, now we're going to come down and do this part of the face. And again, I mentioned how there's this bump that you can't see very well. It's a smaller ossicone, which is a bony growth on the skull, just like these, but shorter. So it's this little arch here. And coming right down from that, close to the eye, it sort of has a little bump on the snout here, a couple little bumps on the snout, and then the mouth gets wider. The lip. There we go. That's good. And then it's got a pair of nostrils. You can't see this one very easily, but there's a line here, up here, and a little bit of an arch there where that nostril will be. But we're seeing this one bigger because it's closer to us, and it's a little bit, looks like it's a little bit higher. And it's shaded inside. Okay, so yeah, got that. That is kind of a, I think I'm going to make that a little wider there. There's a few lines that are a little bit hard to see. There's the lips. And again, let me double check my proportions here. Oh, I'm a little bit off, aren't I? It's okay. You learn so much by drawing something, and the more times you draw it, the more accurate you'll be. And every giraffe has a little bit different proportions, just like people do and kids do. So it's okay that it's not exact. Now we're going to do this cheek. And the cheek kind of comes over here. It's hard to see because of the fur and the patterns, but the jaw, that's the jawbone, where the mouth opens and closes. All right. And then the other part of the neck comes down here. And you can actually, yeah, we'll just go like that. Okay, now let's see. Oh, we forgot the other eye. Let's see. That's right. We brought this cheek all the way up to where the eye is going to be pretty much. And, oh yeah, I'm gonna just do a little bit of erasing right there before we put that other eye in. And so that eye is, yeah, this is a little bit too obvious there. I think it kind of goes like this. So this other eye is right across from this one at the same height. And it's a little bit down from the ear. It's right across from the base of the ear. And it's going to be bigger than this eye because we see the whole thing. And they have such big, beautiful, soft, gentle eyes, don't they? Let me double check how big that is. That's close enough. And then we have, actually the eyelid is a little bit closed right here. And then we have the eyelashes. And we have some eyelashes down here too. That's right. And then we have the actual eye. You can't really see the pupil, but I'm going to leave some of it lighter to catch the light and have some of those eyelashes. It will be darkest on the top under the eyelashes. But let's leave a little light area. And we can always add a little light area by lifting the pencil too. And then they have a little bit of an area right here like we do, the corner of our eye. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to do a little bit of erasing to fix some of my beginning try lines. So let's just lighten up the lines that we don't want. And I'm gonna check my proportions a little bit. Yeah, I do have his neck too wide, don't I? It's okay. And then, so I'm gonna do one more outline, a little bit darker and adding a little bit of fur. Okay, so as usual, I'm gonna start up here and I wanna show that that top is a little bit bald. So that's gonna be a pretty strong line there. Again, the males have larger ossicones that are sort of bald without hair on top because they hit each other because they get really aggressive and they're fighting for the rights to mate. So that one you can see it's sort of bald on top, and this one is too a little bit. You can see part of it where the hair's not covering. And these don't have to be exact. Okay. Now I want to work on this ear some more. So I'll strengthen that line, the outline. The fur is very short there. So that's a really strong outline. And here's the base of the ear that's bigger. And then there's that white fur that's in front of that shadowed area. And we can make some shadows in there. And yeah, Make it even darker. Now, if you had a different kind of pencil, like a shading pencil, you could use that to shade with. That sometimes is faster than a sharper pencil. And then anyway, so coming down here, let's get the little upright mane and don't make it too perfect, just like your hair getting out of bed in the morning. Sometimes we want to try to make lines too perfect when we're drawing and it doesn't look as realistic. There we go. Alrighty, now what? Let's go back over here to this ear. I want to strengthen that line. So I'm pushing down a little harder. And then I want to add some shadow behind the bright fur. So I think there's even some colors in there. There might be some dark colors like the spots. I'm not quite sure. I've never been lucky enough to see a wild giraffe like you may have. It's just in a zoo. But anyway, there's some shadowing, or maybe those are colors. And then the fur on front. Yeah, just like the fur, it's kind of on the front here. Okay. And you can always blend with your finger too. All right, now let's make this eye stronger and nice and dark. This is very beautiful and glossy. And there's a bunch of, I'm going to add some lashes down here too. And I don't know if this is a lash or just a problem with the photograph, but anyway. Alrighty. Then I'm going to make this line stronger. Not so much here because you can't see that with the fur. But I'm going to make this line stronger and a little bit wavy. And then you have the mouth. And the opening of the mouth. I think this is the other side of the snout here a bit. Anyway, there's the nostril. And then the other nostril is a lot more obvious and more shadowed. And then the mouth. Now there's lots of little whiskers on the mouth, just like any other animal, like the lions and wild dogs and anybody else. They've got whiskers to help them feel their environment, to sense their environment. And then the jaw, which kind of disappears over here. And then the neck. All right, how we doing? I think I did make mine a little bit taller than this one. Let me get a little bit more with this eye. The eyes are really the windows to the soul. And so we want that eye to have some personality. And some shadowing. Because again, it's very glossy and reflects the light. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing I do is start adding some shadowing. I do that before I add the spots. And if we look closely, we can see that the sunlight looks like it's coming from up here, like it's maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And how do I know that? It's because I see some cast shadow on this side of the ossicones and down below the eye and on the cheek here and on the neck, on this side of the neck. And this side of the neck is sunnier, and this is too, and this is too. So now I'm going to start shadowing before I add the spots or anything else. And we're noticing that the sun is coming from this direction. So I'm just going to use the side of my drawing pencil and just add some very light shadowing here. And we've got some shadowing more on the ear and on the base of the ear. And behind the eye, actually, we forgot to add this edge to the eye here. It kind of goes like this. It's sort of like this part of the eye, but on this side. And so what we're seeing is some shadowing behind that ridge. And then some stronger shadows down here. And shadows underneath the cheek here. And you can see there's a shadow that kind of comes like this as well, where the neck is kind of rounding. Okay, and then I think I want to fix that a little bit. So it's never too late to fix something. I noticed that the jaw, I would say the jaw comes more here. And then it does sort of hook up with that ridge there. So that's easy to fix. You may have noticed that before. I think that's a little better. Okay. And then you see there's some shadowing on top of the eye a bit, where there's this arch, this bony arch. And then some shadowing below the eye. And on the side of the cheek. And that shadowing is pretty strong below this ridge here of the mouth. The top of the forehead. This forehead is kind of flat and reflecting the sun, and this is more in the shade. And then there's some shadowing on the chin, and there's some actually more shadowing on the mouth right there. And there's shadowing under here and here. So anyway, I'm just adding a little bit of graphite. Okay. Now going back up here, the ossicone is going to be more shadowed on this side because it's rounded and the sun is coming from the upper right. So the lower left is going to be more shadowed. And then there's a little subtle shadow that is showing us where that very subtle bump is of the ossicone. And a little bit on here, and then some more on here. Okay, and if you want, you can blend this with your finger too. That will make it softer. So you don't see the marks of the pencil as much. And I'll add a little bit here. Okay. Okay, so then I'm going to add some of the spots. And like I said, I think there's some spots inside the ear. I can't quite tell, but it definitely looks darker, and it's not necessarily the shadow. It kind of looks like spotting. And there's some smaller spots here. Of course, every single giraffe is different. And so you don't have to be exact because your giraffe's going to be different. And every spot is going to be a little bit different shape. And I'm just kind of making it up, just having fun. Just trying to get it sort of correct. And we do have some spots here on the cheek, different sizes and shapes. And I don't see any other spots. I do want to add a little bit more fur up here. That black dark fur. If I use my dark sketching pencil like I am, that's pretty dark. And then if I could add some more here to the mane. And yeah, you don't want to be too perfect. And I think I want to add, some kind of expression lines. Because this is the eyelid, and those can move. So you could have those just kind of basic there. And the eye actually has some pigment around it that isn't the eye, I noticed. And it's not as dark. Let's add some pretty eyelashes. Yeah, the inside of the eye is going to be very dark and glossy. There we go. I think that's a little bit better. And anyway, the more you look at something, the more you can draw it accurately. Yeah, I like to make some pretty eyelashes. And some more that fur here. So you could work on this for a lot longer, making it just as realistic as you want. And sometimes it helps to draw without someone like me talking. I'm going to add a little bit more of these soft whiskers. Okay, I think I'm done for now. I'd love to have you keep working on yours. I'm sure you can make it a lot better than mine. And with some more time and just really noticing back and forth where you have your highlights and your shadows and where you have your spots and your mane and your fur, your ears, the glossy eyes with the highlights, the pretty eyelashes, the nostrils, and the mouth with the whiskers. Well, I hope you enjoyed following along to this video about how to draw a realistic giraffe. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.